Hi, everyone. Farmington Mayor Nate Duckett. Excited to have you here on the mayor's table today. We have a special guest, Dr. Eugene Schmidt, the Farmington Municipal Schools superintendent, is going to be talking to us about returning to school, live graduations, and all the exciting things that come with having a regular school year with kids in the classroom. Hi, everyone. Farmington Mayor Nate Duckett. Thank you for joining us for another episode of the Mayor's Table. I have a special guest with us today, and it's a very timely conversation with Dr. Schmidt, Farmington Municipal Schools superintendent. Dr. Schmidt, thanks for joining us.
Mayor Duckett, I am delighted to be here and looking forward to this conversation.
Well, I'd say it's a great time for us. You know, we schedule these things out in advance when we're going to have guests on the show, and it just happens that this gets to be the week of some really big news coming out of the Department of Education that I think most people are probably aware of now. But just to give some context to the timing, today is March 9th. So it's Tuesday, March 9th. Tomorrow, Wednesday the 10th, we'll find out how we're doing in the red to green categories. But yesterday, New Mexico Department of Education came out and said they want to have all schools open at 100% by April 5th.
Yes, it was such a welcomed bit of news to have Secretary Stewart go on a press conference via Facebook to announce that schools will be allowed to fully reopen. Just think about that, Mayor, fully reopen. Imagine how anxious you are for that for the town, but for the school, that's 10,500 kids have been waiting for that invitation.
We're almost at 1 year now since it was March 15th, or the announcement was on March 11th, I think, last year when we were going to shut down for those 2 weeks. So just to think it's been almost a full year, and now the idea that we're going to be allowed to go back to school at 100% capacity, it's almost surreal. Like, just to think about that we haven't been doing this thing that we've done our whole lives for an entire year. So I'm very excited. I know my son and daughter are obviously very excited. And what does that mean, though? Well, I've already had questions since yesterday. Well, does that mean that my student can perform in the band? Is there going to be orchestra? Are we going to have prom? What's that? Graduation. I mean, it's got that whole, because a lot happens in schools.
Yes.
There's all sorts of activities and clubs and things outside of just the daily learning. So what does it mean to be fully open April 5th?
Well, let me begin by sharing with our community the importance of the efforts of Mayor Duckett to even help us get back in school. You'd be very pleased to know, and I would say not surprised to know, how many telephone calls, reaching out to the governor's office, talking to our senators and our legislators, and just advocating on behalf of the school system as to how important it is for our kids to be back in school. So let me personally thank you for that.
Well, it's very kind of you, but let me just throw it back at you. I mean, there's school districts in our state that don't want to open. And you have been an advocate from the very beginning of taking a responsible, balanced approach to getting kids in the classrooms when you know they're going to benefit the most. So really, to you and your staff, thank you for supporting the community and what I believe is the overall arching belief of individuals here. They want to see their kids in school. So thank you. I think we share that mutual appreciation.
Yeah, we do live in a community that values public education and wants their kids back. So to answer your question, it is very exciting. And even in the short while since the Secretary's announcement came out, we've received a lot of calls thanking us for getting our schools open. And I think importantly, wondering how we're going to do that.
Right.
Because we've gone from a hybrid where kids have been going to school 2 days a week, and now to a scenario where we're going to fully reopen. So for Farmington, we will be looking at a model that continues to honor the Monday professional development and remote learning for kids. I need that time because while thousands more kids are going to be coming back to school, I still have thousands of kids learning from home. So we need the planning time on Monday. So remote learning will continue is our plan. But Tuesdays through Fridays, what a welcome sight it's going to be when suddenly I have 70 buses coming to school instead of 40.
Right.
And we have, the food service, meeting the needs of, 9 to 10,000 kids. It's going to be a wonderful moment. I will share that it's also timely in that we have April and May to relearn how to educate 10,000 kids in a school setting, and the opportunity to begin bringing teachers back. It's just going to be a great, that first week of April, how happy folks are going to be.
It's going to be challenging. We always keep things in perspective because I think there's going to be, you're going to have to get reacclimated to the in-person learning component. I mean, I've got a child in public school who's done a lot of schooling at home in his bed, in his shorts, hanging out. And so that's going to have to, he's going to have to transition now. And he's obviously there 2 days a week now, but he even made a comment the other night that, man, there's going to be a lot of stuff going on, Dad. I'm going to have, 5 days or 4 days a week of actually having to go to school, and then I'm going to have sports afterwards. And I'm like, oh, it's going to be like regular life.
Yes.
Yeah, it's right. But the idea, the mode I think a lot of people are going to have to shift into is every day I'm going to have to be up at 6:30, 7 o'clock now. That hasn't been the case, for a year, and getting back into those usual routines, which is going to be healthy, by the way. I really believe it'll be healthy for the community in general to get those routines back, because a lot of things happen when you kick off your day, getting your kids to school and getting them ready, and it gets you charged up, I think, individually to go out and do that.
So let me go back and just share for a few minutes the importance of the message we began our conversation with, and that's we're waiting for tomorrow's, because today's Tuesday, tomorrow's Wednesday, in which we're going to learn if we're green or not.
Sure.
And I wanted the community to know that how active you've been in promoting that message. You, Mike Stark, and a bunch of others in town have been very proactive. If we go green, we're going to get to reopen. And so it's with excitement that, I'm hoping that next Monday or so that announcement is out there, because you asked a question moments ago. So what about music, art, drama, the specials, as Daniel Fair would call them? Right now, we can't do those indoors yet. We'll be practicing the band outside.
Sure.
But if we can get to green, if we can get to turquoise, then we get to bring people back into the buildings. And so that's still an important message for our community, is the work is not done. We get to this place that it looks like we're going towards green, but it still takes vigilance to get there. So to all of my teachers, and the community, my teachers especially, we will have a large push to finish off the vaccinations. And so take advantage of that, and let's make school even safer by all of us doing our part. But when we get to green, then we can begin having that conversation about performances and maybe some of the indoor activities that students haven't had, like dances and things. And so we're hopeful, because right now, just the excitement of getting to do sports outside was a wonderful moment. And so think back over these last 2 weeks. Literally, you can't go to a football game to now you can. You can't send all your kids to school, but now you can. And we're just that close to being ready for the rest of the things that we think school should include, those performances, those concerts, the dances, and other kinds of things. So I do appreciate, Mayor, how much you've been a voice in saying, if we all do our part, we mask up, we wash our hands, we wear masks in public, it's going to get us to where schools are more open than they are even today.
Sure. Well, green will get us in a lot better place for on a number of different levels within the community. Businesses, of course, being associated with the red to green as well. And then we go to turquoise. And I've made jokes that the next color up is going to be uranium, which is a vital resource for New Mexico.
Yes.
So, but going back, so there's a lot of work that still needs to be done, and I'm happy to see that they're prioritizing the teacher vaccinations or vaccines going out this month. this is something we pushed, in January when the vaccine rolled out, that if we were going to get kids back in school, we should make the environment as safe as possible for the educators and also the staff, because it's not just the teachers in there. You have a lot of staff as well that's supporting the schools. Do you know at this point how many teachers in your school district have received the vaccine? Do you have any idea of percentages or anything like that?
I have a good guesstimation, and I appreciate that question, because this will be my challenge match for next Monday when this airs, is that there's still time. But I'm guessing 40% of, we have about 1,400 to 1,500 employees, and so I'm pushing, somewhere about 40%. I will say that it's some people have vaccinations through other means and methods, and so
Sure.
I don't know the full number, but the numbers that we understand are very positive and suggestive that teachers understand the importance that little act does to get other kids back in the classroom.
Yeah. Well, so that's a good number. 40% is good to know. The goal is to get as many people as want the vaccine, in the schools, to have them done by the end of March. I know that maybe by the time this airs, there would have been 1,000 vaccines given out at McGee Park over the weekend specifically for teachers or prioritizing teachers. So I think we're moving in the right direction, and it couldn't be in a better time. I think especially now as it's getting warmer outside, it's going to be great to get the kids back doing their normal routines, and I'm excited for that. So after April 5th, we've talked a little bit about graduations. We're looking at now, and historically here we have outdoor graduations, so I think for me it'd be easy to say that we'd be able to accomplish that task of, for each of the high schools. What is your staff thinking?
Yes, and I appreciate that question, because conversations are, I will say, alive and positive with the public education department. I personally have had several conversations, and we have asked for permission to begin planning for 4 outdoor graduations. And I know that somewhere, Mayor, we said keep Ricketts available for me so I could, if I need to get even more kids, depending upon the color. But the public education department, I think, will give an announcement sometime early in April. We've asked, Farmington has asked, ignore the color, allow graduation. And at the very least, because it's outdoor, let me start with 33% occupancy of a stadium. I know that Ricketts holds about 6,000 or more, so I'm hoping that give me maybe 2,500 if we choose that venue. But we are going to look to the city to partner with us if we can get more people in the stadium.
Sure. We got to complete the renovation at Ricketts first.
Yes.
So let's get through that.
I'll give you 3 weeks.
Oh my gosh. Last year was a rough year for contractors,
Yes.
and so we're running up against that deadline. But no, obviously, and what I appreciate about the open communication that at least during my tenure as mayor with your office and your staff and with your governing body, I mean, it's we've always maintained a really positive outlook for how we can all work together to benefit the community. And I think it's a unique thing, and there's a lot of unique things I really like about San Juan County and the city of Farmington. But the way that these government entities have found a common thread to work together on, even in the most challenging and difficult times as we faced last year, just shows the level of leadership within each of our organizations. So, I'm very blessed, honestly, to be here where I'm at right now, working with you and your group, and for the benefit of our students. Looking at, this is a document that this NMED has provided for full entry, and I imagine this is going to be open to the public. You can
Yes.
access this on the NMED website. A lot of good information here for parents that they need to know. Obviously, we want to make sure that there's no outbreaks of COVID-19 in the schools, and I think you'd made a comment prior to us talking about how many teachers have been tested at this point since we've been reopening, and maybe you can give a little bit of that detail to the public.
Yes, and in terms of several things, we don't let down our guard. We will ask that students continue to wear masks. We'll practice social distance to the extent possible. Teachers are busy being vaccinated, including, as on Monday when this is broadcast, having looked back over the previous immunization event. any teacher, any staff member can be vaccinated, and that would be my challenge. But currently, and it's a week before this will be broadcast, so about 40% of staff have already stepped into that line for first or both of those
Sure.
vaccinations. I will share that we've learned a lot about holding school in a time of pandemic in terms of, increasing the quality of air filters in the buildings, airflow, that the distancing of kids in the hallways when appropriate, and the importance of families in their daily RUVNA checks. And so we'd ask that you continue to do your pandemic temperature check to get kids into school. And as we work together, it's just going to make a difference, and even more kids will be back. Our hope, Mayor, is that anybody and everybody will be back for school in the fall.
Absolutely. Well, and on the testing part, though, Dr. Schmidt, aren't you all doing tests of all the teachers and staff? Is it everybody has to have a test each month? Is that how that works out?
Yes, and I thank you for that. The guidelines, as we understand, is that 25% of the entire employee population must be tested each week.
Okay.
And so we are testing well over 300 and I'm going to say 40 people per week. The new guidelines that were just issued said that if you've been vaccinated, now you're out of that testing pool. And so that population will be smaller. But the good news is you're going to get me to green and maybe to turquoise before the end of the school year. With every change in color, fewer teachers have to be tested. So at 25% yellow, it's something like 12.5% in green, down to 5% in turquoise. And so testing will go on. And I would say that testing is a benefit to the county because we've had, since January, probably 2,400 COVID tests. In fact, my number's been drawn twice.
Oh, wow.
And negative both times, by the way.
Great job.
But we've only had less than a handful of cases that came out of those thousands of tests. And so it tells me the staff is behaving when I'm not watching, and I appreciate that.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting just to think about the change in the I don't know if it's called the virality of the virus, or just the way that it's kind of ebbed and flowed. And right now, it's definitely on this downward slope. And it's interesting you point out the fact that as we move up the color chart, that there is less testing required of those populations, which right now are really sustaining testing because testing has slowed down quite a bit. I mean, it was December and the parking lot at AFC Urgent Care was overflowing with individuals looking to get tested. And so if it wasn't for the mandatory testing components that have been worked in to things like schools and detention centers and those places, we'd have a real difficult time in that criterion of meeting your positivity rate requirements, which, just for people to know, we've been asking Dr. Scrace and the medical team of the Department of Health to consider that in the long run as we see less and less testing and more vaccinations going out. And then, of course, there's going to have to be a transition because we'll have the majority of individuals in the state will have received the vaccine or have some form of immunity. I mean, there's a lot of numbers being floated out there right now that say we could be 72% immune to it as a population. I'm not a scientist. So
well, let me take a moment to say how proud I am of the whole county's medical division, including the National Guard. That my immunization invite came through PMS, and you walk in. My wife's invite was through San Juan College and the Department of Health, and so it was literally a drive-through in your car shot. And I'm just thinking they've really streamlined the process. You're in and out of there in 15 minutes, including the wait in the parking lot. But it really is, it speaks well that National Guard came to town to help you and that the people in town were ready to do the work for you as well. So,
yeah, at this level, it's been really interesting to be able to have access to individuals like Dr. Scrace. A few weeks ago, obviously, we were concerned about the fact that 1/1000% had kept us out of yellow, but communication's been better, and they've worked well with our department or our Office of Emergency Management in many things. So, but for me, as I know for you, and what we've talked about repeatedly, is just to continue to move forward to normality. and doing what we have to do as individuals in order to promote the benefit for everybody else. And what we're doing right now is working. So let's not lose sight of that fact, and let's continue to be vigilant in our daily activities so that we can make sure we push through this and get fully open and make sure we're open for fall school. I mean, that's a big deal. That's football season.
Yes.
We're having football season now in the spring. Then we're going to have football season again in the fall, but that's okay. As much football as possible, in my mind, is good.
Well, let me just, in what short time we have left, I wanted to give a shout out to, certainly our community, but importantly to our parents, our students, our staff. We've done a lot of amazing things under the most difficult of circumstances. I know that you, as the city mayor, think the same, but it's been a remarkable story for our students, our parents, and I just say thank you. There's a movie I'm going to say it's the outlaw Josie Wales, where in the conversation the Native American is telling Josie Wales, we've endeavored to persevere. And I just think that that's what our community has done. We have persevered under the most challenging of conditions, and you just need to be proud of yourselves and know that, we will do our part in the education world to continue to accelerate and catch kids up for lost learning. But we do thank you for believing in publication all the way through a pandemic. So, Mayor, I appreciate the chance to share that.
Well, it's a year of resiliency, Dr. Schmidt, and so I think we are a resilient community, and going through trials obviously builds your confidence to face those types of trials again later on in life. And I still think we're in that, kind of the bridge type year before we get to where we need to be, but it's happening quicker. I'm more optimistic each day that we're going to see things like water parks be open this summer here in the city, that Connie Mack is a possibility for us. I mean, there's still those things sitting in the wing that we know, we're just this close, and let's not lose sight of that. Let's continue to be resilient, continue to use your connections here in the community. If you're in need of something, there's somebody here in the city who is here to support you. I mean, that's what I've found over these past 12 months. There is somewhere you can go, you can get the help that you need. And in many cases, it could be your neighbor who's in there serving. So that's the great thing about living where we live. Anything else to add today?
Just, I appreciate the opportunity to share a moment, and I want to re-extend that we couldn't be where we are unless the voice that you bring as city government to the state. And so thank you for that. Keep me green or better, and we'll just keep moving our kids through the hallways.
I like that idea. Well, thank you for joining us on today's Mayor's Table. We hope you found the information provided today on Farmington Municipal Schools and the reopening plan very helpful for you. And we encourage you, Dr. Schmidt and I both encourage you, continue to be resilient, continue to take care of yourselves and your families to the best of your ability. And if you need help, don't hesitate to reach out. There is somebody out there who's available to you. And we look forward to seeing kids back in school. So, Dr. Schmidt, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
We'll see you again next time right here on the Mayor's Table.